of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Fire. Okay. Fire evacuations. In case of a fire, there are two ways to exit the chamber. To my left, exit through the council chamber doors, turn left and walk down a flight of stairs and out of the building. Or exit to the rear of the chambers. In either case, once out of the building, walk a safe distance away from the building. Can I get a roll call, please?
Charles Ladd.
Here.
Mary Scott.
Here.
Virginia Higley.
Here.
Ken Nelson.
Here.
Linda DeGray.
Here.
John Petronella.
Here.
Vinnie Grillo.
Here.
Francis Alimo. Absent. Dane Thorogood. Absent. And Richard Suzak is here.
Okay, can I get an approval of the minutes for January 9th, 2020, regular meeting?
So moved.
Second.
Any questions, comments, or concerns with the minutes? Everybody good? Mary? All in favor? It's unanimous?
Good job.
Okay. Now to old business. Public hearing, PH number 2960, 90 Elm Street.
Hey, Ken, just one thing. Are any of the alternates seated?
No, but due to the absence of Commissioner Alimo, I'd like to see Commissioner Petronella. Okay. Public hearing 2960. If you'd like to come forward.
We had left the boards last time for the record.
Chairman, I apologize, we left the boards here last time, so just so that if we need to refer to maps.
Yeah, it's fine. Stay in touch. Good.
And I want to clarify for the record and everybody who's here. Last meeting, I made a motion to close the public hearing. My time on the council, we would vote on that. And that's what we were attempting to do. The commission was currently used to just the chairman gaveling down and closing the public hearing. So the public hearing is still open, and the public is welcome to come up and speak when it's time. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, members of the Commission, I'm Glenn Chalder from Planometrics here tonight representing the applicant. With me is Corey Garrow from Close, Jensen and Miller. If my memory serves correct, I think the minutes reflect that the hearing was continued to give the Commission an opportunity to talk with council and also to review the we call it the ECCRs, Easements, Covenants, Conditions, and Restrictions, which is, I think as Lori had indicated, a 45-page document which lays out the responsibilities for the different parties. As we had indicated, that will be filed on the land records prior to the filing of the subdivision maps and will apply to all the parcels. We apologize. We thought that we had submitted it to be part of the application. It didn't get to you, and I understand that that's one of the reasons and rationales for continuing. So we're prepared to answer any questions or issues the Commission may have.
Commissioner Petronella, do you have any questions you'd?
Yeah, I do.
With respect to the ECCR, is this the document that your company created, or is it a variation? Was there something in place when Nason bought the property?
Again, I'm not an attorney. I'm working for the applicants in this situation. I believe as part of one of the maps that we had prepared for our meeting last week was an indication of the different easement areas at the parcel. There have been easements on the parcel which have been in effect since, I think, the 80s and 90s, affecting all of the parcels. So if you may recall, grant me just a moment, Mr. Chairman. I think it was this map you may recall. It's a map titled Areas Subject to Agreements Declarations, and it shows the parcels. The green parcel, which is the Macy's parcel, was subject to agreements dated back to October 4th, 2001, and agreements preceding that, I think really back to the origins of the mall. And now the yellow parcels, which are indicated on this map, which are all the other parcels at the mall, are the ones which will be subject to the ECCR. So Macy's is independently owned, and the agreements which are in effect there parallel this ECCR agreement, but this new ECCR will apply to all of these parcels.
I guess the point that I'm trying to make is the current tenants of the mall have to be abiding by some sort of easements to all the common areas, et cetera,
Correct.
because of subdivision and the parking, the roadways, the main entry-exit, which is in front of Macy's at the corner of Friendly's and so forth. I understand that looks like that is actually owned by the Macy's parcel.
Correct.
So, and I assume that all of the covenants in place and the easements in place includes the Macy's lot, et cetera.
It does.
Yeah.
All of the parcels, including the Macy's parcel, are all subject to these cross easements for both utilities, access, parking, and other aspects of the normal operation of a mall.
Okay. So all the tenants that are currently signed have to abide by that.
Correct. Any lease is subject to those. Any sale would be subject to the conditions of the ECCR and the prior agreements as well.
Correct. Okay. All right. I got you. Currently, the 8 parcels that you refer to, this what you have now, all of those parcels are currently owned by the applicant under that ownership, or is it?
Existing ones, yeah.
So of the part, you want to go ahead, Corey? Thank you.
Yeah, the existing 8 parcels are owned by them all.
Your
The
mic
same,
is-
this, the 8 parcels, the existing 8 parcels are owned by the mall folks, yes.
Okay. Thank you. Now, your application, just for the record, I believe you had stated in the previous meeting that your application is not, it's not intended to change the current use of the property at this time. It's just a re-subdivision.
That's correct. There are no physical changes associated with this re-subdivision. It's just the lot lines are changing.
Okay. All right, that's all I have for now, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Hagel?
Yes, I have a bunch of things disconjointed. I was curious if the parcels are not landlocked, which everybody is seeming to say they aren't. Do the service entrances need to be accepted as streets? You know, or are they still going to be service entrances to many parcels? Again, I don't expect answers. I'm just throwing this out while the thing is open. And since the proposed lot lines and frontage do not comply with business regional, do they need a variance? And I was wondering about floodplain and when that's going to be taken care of. And drainage improvements if required. Does that mean that every single one that comes in to build something will need to give us information on drainage and floodplains and that type of thing? Page 16 of the developer's agreement is required for any improvements must be accepted to must be acceptable to the town attorney. Has the town attorney looked at this and accepted it? I call it the developer's agreement. I apologize.
Are you talking about the ECCRs?
It's 48 pages, and I read them all. And after I read them, I started making notes. Maintenance bonds, performance bonds. This is 48 pages of stuff that should be looked at if it hasn't already. Somewhere in here, and I again apologize because I didn't write the right page number down, but they talk about 5 parcels, A through E, and it's my understanding that there's 8 parcels, so I'm confused. Section 8.4, parking changes. If they change the levels or grades in the parking surfaces, is that something that has to come back to us? Page 27 discusses additional buildings on common areas. How does that affect parking? I know that in here somewhere it talks about each owner or renter or leaser has to have at least 5 parking spaces. So if that complies with zoning, then you're fine. And I did see, for page 14B says out parcel buildings no taller than 24 feet in height. That was kind of odd. It's kind of stuck in my mind. I did notice at the very beginning it says that it has to comply with zoning regulations, and that's great. And then further in it talks about things that don't comply, the owner has to sign off on. So I assume that means the owner has to come back, because they list such things where the owner has to come back as vet hospitals, animal raising or keeping establishments, smelting facilities, agricultural operations, flea markets, pawn shops, repairs, sales, lease of mobile homes, governmental office, adult bookstores, pornographic or obscene. That's in here, not anything I said. And I didn't even read the whole thing. Crematories and gambling establishments. So I'm assuming that if they want to put something in that isn't in the regulations, do they have to go for a variance? They didn't go for a variance on the smaller sizes of the lots, so I'm confused. And again, I apologize. I'm not well-versed in these types of things, but since I got it, I read it. And it brought up a whole bunch of questions, which I'm just throwing out to you now. They don't need an immediate answer.
Well, I think, again, we're here for subdivision applications, so many of the questions you have asked me are with regard to 2 other aspects which I think are important. First of all, the ECCR is an agreement between the owners of the property and the other properties that hopefully will be created there, and they're the rules of engagement. So the landlord is reserved to themselves the right to say that these uses are not in keeping with what I think the terminology in the document is a first-class mall. That is their intention. So the issues that you described are issues where they say you need landlord's approval, and they're not likely to give approval for these types of things.
Right, but they aren't in our regulations.
I understand, but they can have greater restrictions or limitations than you do in your regulations.
Right, but could they, again, I'm not an attorney, I'm just trying to clarify it in my mind, could they get approval from the landlord on something that isn't correct in zoning regulations? I mean, we don't want to enforce
I understand.
zoning regulations.
Anything that would happen in that regard would clearly come back to the commission for either a regulation change, a special permit, whatever procedures would be required for even improvements. If the opportunity arises to build new buildings out there, that's going to require permission from the commission to go ahead and do that. And of course, the proponent would need to get approval from the landlord on behalf of the maintaining a first-class mall, and then proceeding with their application. So that it would very much be a team-based approach, and again, with the intent of creating a first-class mall.
Thank you.
Ginny? Commissioner Suzak.
Because I just want to go back and look at your original approval for the mall was under special permit. And when it was done, there's certain criteria that was established for the mall in order for it to be approved under special permit. And I guess the direction I'm going is that normally, you know, you have a right to develop your mall any way you want it once it's approved by the Planning and Zoning Commission, and as long as, you know, things don't change, you have the right to do whatever you want to do. But every time you actually want to make a modification to that original approval for the mall that you did get, by special permit, you have to go back and review the criteria that was approved for the initial mall to make sure it's still consistent with what that approval was, so that you don't change you don't change some of the conditions that were acceptable initially and make them unacceptable with the new proposal that you have. And I guess, you know, by looking at the fact that you know, you're grandfathered in as long as you don't change anything, but as soon as you start changing things or certain criteria that you know, your mall was approved for, then realistically, we should look at all that criteria again to make sure that we're consistent with what, you know, the criteria is. And I guess, you know, again, you know, I'm not against, you know, this re-subdivision or partitioning or whatever we're talking about. But I think that, you know, I would just want to point out that the criteria that it was originally approved under, and one of the criteria under special, you know, permit, it says it will be in harmony with the appropriate and orderly development of the district in which it is proposed to be situated and will not be detrimental to the orderly development of adjacent properties. So, you know, looking at that criteria in terms of, you know, when it was originally approved, you know, everybody was looking at, you know, a business district, retail, you know, requirements, and you know, a mall was in perfect harmony with, you know, what the original concept was in the 1960s. But as things developed, and now all of a sudden we have another concept for what should be there, you know, we should also be reviewing this criteria again as to whether we're consistent with, you know, the development that we're envisioning for this area. So, you know, I guess, you know, we need to look at, you know, our plan of conservation and development to see, again, if it's, you know, appropriate for what you're proposing on doing. And you know, I know that, again, our zoning regulations right now haven't been modified, and to express the desires of the plan of conservation and development, and we were looking to, you know, for some interaction between the mall owners and ourselves, which has definitely delayed our action along those lines. But the fact that, you know, that is our long-range plan in terms of, you know, we will be passing, you know, I guess, or modifying our zoning regulations such that, you know, if, you know, we modify them and, you know, the mall owners have a different concept of what should be there, that, you know, we will sort of, you know, force your hand to say, this is what we passed right now. You had your opportunity to give us input, but you didn't give us any input. And all of a sudden, if you do sell a parcel to somebody and all of a sudden the zoning regulations change and he can't more or less develop his property in the way that he wanted to develop it, then, you know, we want to work with you and sort of allow you that opportunity to give some input, or else we can sort of develop it any way that we want to. And, you know, recognizing that, you know, if something happens that, you know, you are going to have to abide by the zoning regulations that are going to be in effect when they do pass.
I think our client is working hard to try to lease buildings at the property, to reinvigorate the mall property. This plan has been afoot for some time in terms of attracting new tenants and having the opportunity for new development at the property. The original special permit that may have been granted back in the 60s or 70s doesn't actually affect what we're doing here today. If Enfield had a separated planning commission and zoning commission, because under Connecticut state law we have two statutory authorities, and Enfield has combined the two. But the Planning Commission adopts the POCD and regulates subdivision. The zoning regulations do not come into effect with the application before the Commission tonight, except in one key area, which is to say that any lot created has to comply with the zoning regulations in terms of the dimensional and other standards. This is why I think it's important for the Commission, again, just to refresh for the record, footnote 9 to table 510 states, should I read it again? Understood.
You can read it for the record.
For the audience, I think, just so that everybody understands, because what we're trying to do here is comply with your regulations and move ahead so that the mall can be reinvigorated, et cetera. And basically what footnote 9 says is the requirements of this section, and these are the dimensional standards, things like frontage, which you had mentioned, for example. The requirements of this section with respect to the Business R district shall apply only to the area of the entire site included in the in the approved special permit plan, and except for the maximum building height shall not apply as a restriction to any subdivision of the original special permit plan area. So in other words, the issues of frontage, et cetera, are not at issue because of footnote 9. We do
Again, I'm not asking that, that's not my concern in terms of the frontage or bulk or lot
Understood, okay.
size developed is not a concern. I think that, again, you could subdivide it. And I think that I'm just concerned that, again, the big vision is that we are anticipating of doing something there. And whether you're part of that discussion or not part of the discussion, it will have an implication as to how you're going to be able to develop those parcels at a future date.
We understand. I mean, the Commission has the ability to establish regulations, change regulations, et cetera. We understand that. And we would like to be able to continue dialogues in the future with regard to any regulation changes that were going to happen, because I think we share the same interest at this property in terms of having it be successful, be reinvigorated, become more closely over time to the vision that's expressed in the POCD. Step one, unfortunately, is that the mall is not as occupied as perhaps we would like it to be. And to reinvigorate the property, we're going to take this first step to get it moving. And there is activity been expressed. I know that information has been shared with town staff in terms of some of the things that are afoot, and I think the Commission will be pleased. But the first step is we've got to be able to configure the property in a way to make that work. So I think, are we on the same team? Yes, I believe that we are. Are we there today on a perfect alignment of the things we're concerned about? I would say no. We haven't had as much discussion and dialogue as we can. We filed this application. We're seeking your approval so that we can move ahead and put these plans into effect. We're hopeful that you'll support our efforts to redevelop the mall appropriately.
Commissioner DeGray.
Just one question, because as Commissioner, oh my gosh, Judy.
Higley.
Sorry, Higley. So she read the covenants and easements. It all refers to a Class A mall, and I don't know if you know the answer to this, but currently under the classification, we have a Class C mall, which you have right now. Do all of these easements still and covenants still carry? Because everything in the documents that we got that you gave were for Class A. I know you're trying to work toward a Class A, but I just want to make sure that.
I'm not familiar with the terminology of Class A, and I imagine there must be a Class B or Class C.
There's a Class A, which the mall was at one time when it had several anchor stores and they were making X number of dollars per square foot.
Understood.
Class B is a little lower, and a Class C is having one anchor. And
It's been, I apologize, a couple of months since I read the ECCR, but the phrase that caught my eye was the phrase first-class mall, not Class A mall.
Yeah.
So first-class mall is a term of art that suggests that we are aspiring to accomplish things that will make the mall better and return it towards a Class A mall. But the term Class A, to my knowledge, is not used in here. That's a categorization perhaps by the industry based on tenancy and market conditions, et cetera. And of course, you would always want to be a Class A mall. And if, unfortunately, we're characterized these days as not Class A, our goal is to get back there.
Okay,
so the terminology first-class mall is a qualitative aspiration to
I just want to make sure that no matter what the rating is per the industry, because that's really what you're going to.
I think this is, if somebody was to propose, I think I was chuckling a little bit, Ms. Higley, when you made your comments, because you had government offices in there with pornographic shops, and I certainly don't want to conflate the two. But I think that if somebody was to come along and propose something that was slightly distasteful to the mall, or would perhaps hurt the mall or its ability to lease tenants, they would hold out this clause and say that does not reinforce our efforts to become or create or maintain a first-class mall. Therefore, we are not likely to authorize you to make application to the town. They will be your first line of defense for these types of things. So I think that the commission could, in a future application, inquire of an applicant as to whether or not this will, in fact, be consistent with the concept of a first-class mall. The ECCR is on file now here. It's not filed on the land records yet, but you can look to it in the future if you have questions, and I think that's fair. If I was here representing an applicant tonight, I would think a question like that is fair game.
Okay.
And I would hope to have a good response for it.
Thank you.
Commissioner Petronella.
Yeah, I went through the ECCR pretty thoroughly, and I find that it's pretty thorough. I don't really have any issues with it, and I think it's all geared towards trying to maintain a first-class mall. A lot of restrictions in it, of do's and don'ts and so forth. So I got a question. A statement was asked, or it was asked by Commissioner Higley if the applicant would be keeping all the parcels being created, to which you, I believe, replied, Mr. Chadler, that they will not. The question regarding that is, if all the parcels get sold off, that would include, parcel 10 is the big one, which is the guts of the smaller shops of the mall and a lot of the common areas, et cetera. So I look at that parcel. Whoever owns that parcel is the gatekeeper of the ECCR, the controlling document. So I'm going to assume that that statement means that it's not a general statement that you're going to sell off all the parcels in Scoot, or who. If you do, somebody's got to be the gatekeeper.
I would agree. And I think if I may refresh the commission, I think in terms of the testimony last week from Mr. Gavin, who was here representing the property owners directly, he indicated it's their intention to try to get as many people to lease as possible. Leasing is a much more lucrative transaction for them. It helps their cash flow and helps make them all stronger. All the stores attract tenants and activities. If you lose anchors, it can reduce the traffic flow, which reduces your ability to get rent from people. So they would like to rent to everybody. And this is the old operation, the old mall, the way that malls operated. In this day and age, I think, as he indicated, and I didn't write down all the numbers, but I think they're in the transcript or the YouTube video of the last meeting, is that when a credit tenant gets to a certain point, it's actually more cost effective for them to buy. And if you don't have that opportunity for them, they may leave and go elsewhere, which then hurts you again. So the issue here is to have the flexibility. Perhaps in a perfect world, all the parcels may continue to be owned by the current owners. If they have to sell to promote economic development transaction, reinvigorate them all, they'd like to have that opportunity, and I think that's why we're here.
I do recall that statement as well, so they're kind of contradicting one another, but meaning one statement was made that you prefer to not sell but to lease, but the other statement was you replied that you would be selling off many of the parcels, but again, those.
Okay, if I use the word many, I apologize because I don't have direct knowledge. I think the issue is probably.
And I'm taking it right from the meeting minutes from the last meeting as well, where
I think there might be three options.
It says to which Mr. Chadler replied they will not, meaning retaining the parcels. So
I'd have to actually see that one. I understand. Yeah. My impression was not to leave, or my desire was not to leave that impression. Okay. I think option number one is that they would like to own the parcels and lease the buildings. It's the most lucrative financially. If they are unable to do so, if somebody is certainly a more credit-worthy tenant or occupant and is prepared to leave if they can't buy, then you will buy. But both of those options are preferable to it being dark. So I think that they will act in their economic self-interest in terms of trying to reinvigorate this property.
Okay, thank
They've
you.
made an investment that other people weren't willing to make. So,
All right, thank you.
thank you.
Okay. I have a few things. You're currently saying that the property consists of 8 lots.
Correct.
Correct. Okay. I happen to know that if I sell 50 feet of my backyard to my neighbor, it doesn't make it a legal conforming lot. The town of Enfield recognizes the entire parcel as 2 parcels. One with 19 acres, one with 23 acres. Okay? So the remaining lots, they're not taxed separate, they don't have separate addresses, and you can divide it up any way you want. The town still recognizes it as 2 separate parcels, Macy's and the mall. And my concerns with this is the reference you keep going back to, 5.1, under the BR regulation where footnote number 9 is, that you have brought up multiple times, lot area, square foot, it says 5 acres, correct? And then if you flip the page, 2 pages, on section 5.30, special requirements pertaining to the BR district. Only planned commercial developments, including regional shopping centers containing more than 80,000 square feet of building floor area, occupying a parcel of 10 acres or more. And it says must remain under unified ownership. So what you're referring to is for 5 acres, up to 10. This section here is for 10 acres or more. Now, why would the regulation have 2, and I'm going to say contradicting statements in it? And I'm coming up with that when these regulations were drafted, they tried to protect the largest parcels, which is the mall, from being broken up. That's the way I see this as written in our regulation, which would basically take the place of footnote number 9. Otherwise, there would be no mention of 10 acres or more under unified ownership. It wouldn't be there. So it's there, it's after everything that you keep using in the regulation to say that we have to approve this. I don't know where the commission's going, but I have serious reservations with that in our regulation. And I want to bring it to your attention, have you address it, and then I think the commission's done, then we'll open it up to the public and see what they have to say. Thank you.
Just like to reiterate for the commission, and again for the record, we're not here with a zoning application. We're here with a...
But you said we have to follow the zoning regulations for a subdivision.
If I may, Mr. Chairman. This footnote 9 talks about the fact of the approved special permit plan. If I was here before you tonight requesting approval for a new regional mall shopping center, I would argue with you that Section 530 applies and I better have 80,000 square feet, 10 acres, and unified ownership. Now that I've done that, footnote 9 says, now that I've done that, the requirement shall only apply to the area of the entire site included in the approved special permit plan, and I can subdivide, as the commission has done before with the creation of the lots out there. And might I point out, the parcel across the street, Home Depot is its own separate lot. Home Depot doesn't have access, doesn't have frontage, doesn't have all of these other standards, and the commission approved it there. So all we're doing, asking to do, is the same thing that you've done here before at this site and on other sites. And I think, as somebody who works with regulations on a regular basis, the logic sequence, it would make more sense if they were laid out in a logical progression. Unfortunately, that they're not. But I think if you parse the language out in terms of what it suggests, you need to get the original special permit plan to meet the criteria that you've identified. Once you've done that, now footnote 9 kicks in and says you can subdivide the parcel. And again, that's why we're here.
Then why would this section that I just read be in the regulations period? The minute you approved the original mall, you can go in a week later and subdivide it up to anything you want? That
I think
and in succession, like you just said, this is after, and it is a special requirement for 10 acres or more. Why would it even be there if what you're saying is accurate that, okay, we did it at 10 acres, we're coming back tomorrow, and now we're going to bust it up to half-acre lots. That negates this whole paragraph.
Mr. Chairman, I don't know the history as to exactly when footnote 9 was created. I do understand there have been conversations about this over the years, and this situation that we've applied for you for is exactly why this situation was created and why the mall's been subdivided so far. And apparently the property across Freshwater Boulevard has also been subdivided using this language. Because I think, as Mr. Petronella had sort of asked the question about the sale versus the leasing, these are operating efficiencies for the owners in terms of being able to occupy the property. Keeping it as one large mall property may, in fact, hasten its situation, which is not what any of us want. So there's kind of a new reality. I think as part of the public hearing last week, I had submitted examples of malls around the state that where this is happening on a regular basis. And so I think the sequence, as I understand it, could have been and when was the mall created? Was the late 60s, early 70s?
70s.
In the 70s. That the creation of a regional mall was one property with multiple activities, and then over the years, Macy's apparently decided first that they wanted to own their own piece, so they were cut off. Then maybe Sears, said, we'd like to have our own piece. And so this was created to otherwise have a situation where it can, and I think the ECCR does provide the unified control. Yeah, because the language says under unified ownership or control. So I think as Higley pointed out, what we've got here is a set of rules of engagement for everybody on this property in terms of how parking, drainage, landscape, everything's going to be managed. So it is unified control. So I think to most people, I think one of the commissioners here, it might have been Mr. Alamo, I'm not sure how to, Alamo, thank you, who was a little surprised that the existing mall tenants are cut off. People realize they're walking through the mall, they don't realize they're actually walking from one property to another. You don't see the lot lines out there, and that's our goal and intent, is that you will never know that there are lot lines out there. It'll be operated, perceived, and configured as one property and work harmoniously together. That would be the intent.
So the current status of the mall, the way it sits right now, Macy's and the mall, they both have access to main roads, to town roads, correct?
Correct.
They both have 10 or more acres. So would you agree that the way the mall is currently, it meets section 5.30? It's under unified ownership, 10 acres or more, meets the square footage and everything, and they all have access to public roads. So what I'm getting at is the difference of what you're trying to do is you're trying to eliminate everything that mall is right now that's approved. You can say it's 8 lots. The town of Enfield recognizes it as 2. And the 2 lots meet 5.30.
How the town recognizes it as only 2 lots when clearly the maps are filed on the land records.
Well, maybe somebody merged all the properties together to create the mall back in the 70s.
They're separate lots. I think there's separate volume page references, et cetera. So whether for assessment convenience, there's one card and report because the owners are all the same. I don't know. But the issue is, I think, if Corey and I were attorneys, he could sell me a parcel tomorrow.
Right, but it doesn't make it a legal lot. I could sell you my backyard. It does not make it a recognized legal lot.
I think we could all agree that the lots which are out there, maybe we can't agree, but my position before the commission is the lots which are shown on the existing lot layout map, which is, I know the commission can't see it, it's down below here, but the existing lots out there were legally created, do conform with your regulation, particularly with regard to footnote 9. If we go back and review the minutes as to when footnote 9 was created and when the subdivision occurred, I think we're going to find a reference to footnote 9 as permitting and allowing this type of situation.
But you keep skipping over 5.30. You keep going back to the other one, which is 5 acres.
You may not like my response, Mr. Chairman, but my response is that those conditions apply when the original special permit is granted for a mall. That's when they apply. After that, if I wanted to then expand the mall, if I wanted to change the mall, I wanted to demolish one building and build another, I would come back to you for zoning approvals for that matter. The situation I think that we do have here with regard to the establishment of a mall, Section 530 could come into play in that scenario. now that the mall has been created, we're not proposing any zoning activities here in terms of redevelopment of buildings, et cetera. Hopefully that will be coming later. But footnote 9 says, once the mall's been created, with regard to the approved special permit plan, that those dimensional standards shall not apply. So I think
For 5 acres. It says right in the regulation, 5 acres.
it says right in the regulations. I don't want to belabor the point, Mr. Chairman. The requirements of this section with respect to the business R district shall apply only to the area of the entire site. So you would treat it as if everything was one parcel. Macy's and everybody else is one parcel. And, except for the maximum building height, shall not apply as a restriction to any subdivision of the original special permit plan area. So once the original special permit plan was granted in the 1970s, I can, under footnote 9, apply for a subdivision and configure the parcels. And I think the commission rightly shared their concerns about access and management, et cetera, and that's what the 48, I thought it was 45-page, but 48-page ECCR is for. So I think we feel that there's multiple examples in Enfield where the commission has done this before. Multiple examples, or not multiple, at least 2 examples on this property. The original creation of the cutting out of the Macy's, and then the subdivision which created the additional lots, where it's happened before. So all of that was done in accordance with footnote 9.
Okay, thank you. Anybody? I'm going to open it to the pub. Go ahead.
The question. Another question. This is pertaining to the existing layout, but I guess for Mr. Garrow, is it, from Close Jensen and Miller? So are you a licensed professional engineer, land surveyor?
Professional engineer.
Okay, professional engineer. The ECCR Exhibit A consists of the legal descriptions of the existing lot layouts as they are now. The back end of the ECCR. I don't know if you got it with you, but it's all. It starts at page 34. So you got all the legal descriptions, and there's several pages there.
Yep, got it. Thank you.
Did you prepare those legal descriptions?
No, I did not.
Okay. You don't know where they came from, if these are filed on the land records with the town, or another question is the existing layout map, which is Exhibit B, I believe is supposed to be Exhibit B. It's not attached to the ECCR. I'm going to assume it's the existing layout map. I'm not sure if is that map also on file with the town land records?
The proposed, proposed isn't because it's not approved.
The original application had
the original application is what I'm talking about right now.
The 8 sheets, which you may still have in your packets, those full-size sheets showed the existing conditions and proposed conditions.
Mm-hmm.
All the existing conditions are all on file. That's where we got the information from. Whoever subdivided way back, I don't know. But on record, the existing lot layout is on your record.
That's what I'm asking, because the legal description that's in the ECCR is for the existing, not proposed.
Well, I don't know. The proposed hasn't been.
Right. No, that's correct. I'm just trying to ascertain as to what the question as to is it one lot or is it 2 lots or what's on file right now? There seems to be a little bit of confusion.
It's 8 lots. Yeah.
It's 8 lots. That's you're saying it's 8 lots that's on the town records right now.
For the mall, yeah.
Okay, and then these are the legal description of each lot.
I haven't read those, but how many we got there?
No, there's 8. I verified it.
I think this may be the legal description for where the current owners acquired the property and has been
Correct.
transferred over here. I think the intent is that this document's going to go on file, as I understand it, before the subdivision map. So the legal description that would be appropriate to go on file would be the description of all the parcels that they own that the restrictions will apply to. Then the subdivision map will be filed, and if any of those parcels are then to be sold, they would be sold subject to the restrictions as of volume X, page Y.
Mm-hmm.
So that the sequence of events would follow that scenario, restrictions established, filed with regard to the maps based on what they purchased, so everybody sees that it's all of the parcels, and then it would apply to any subdivision of that.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Okay, we're going to go ahead and open it up to the public and give them their opportunity. Anybody in the public that would like to come up and speak up in regards to public hearing 2960? Please come forward. Name and address for the record, please.
My name is Patrick Thibodeau. I'm an Enfield resident. I live at 20 Cora. I graduated Enfield High School in 1972. Most of that time I've lived outside of town. But I've been back here for 5 years. I've been strongly connected with this town because I have a lot of family here. Thank you for letting me make a few brief comments. There was a lot of talk about vision, about what you want to do here. And,
Excuse me, sir. Could you keep the mic in front of you so people out
oh, okay. Is this good? Yeah, okay. So there was a lot of talk about the vision and what you want to do with the mall. And so I hope you indulge me just a little bit, and I want to share my vision for this area. And then I do have a comment on the proposal before you. Enfield's retail area remains a powerhouse. The parking lots of our shopping centers are often crowded. The stores are busy. Businesses continue to invest. The most recent examples are the Wooden Tap at the Big Y, as you all know, and the cosmetic store next to the Barnes & Noble. Most of our storefronts seem to be thriving, and it's doing well. Enfield's very lucky, but we face a lot of competitive threats. The Holyoke Mall is getting a new Cinemark theater complex and other entertainment facilities, and it's trying to become a destination mall. If East Windsor actually gets a casino, it's possible that they may try to put complementary entertainment businesses near there. And we can't discount the impact of what's happening in Springfield. This brings us to the mall. The mall land is probably our most important commercial property from Holyoke to Hartford. It has exceptional access and visibility. A lot of towns would kill to have this parcel. But it has significant grand list potential, but it also has significant grand list downside. It can create a very negative picture for Enfield, and I think we know what that might mean for the industrial park and for how residents perceive this town, how new homeowners perceive this town. Now, we've sketched some ideas out here in planning documents about what you want to do. And the idea that a developer may arrive with a $100 million mixed-use development sounds like wishful thinking at this point. I just haven't seen the proposal. I haven't read about it in any newspaper. I haven't heard it at these hearings. And frankly, I think we're just flapping our wings like ducks in a pond at this point. So what do we need to do? Okay, so here's some ideas, and they're a little radical, and you're not going to like them probably, but they work. Years ago, New Britain was dealing with a vacant parcel for its downtown land that wanted to develop. The developer pitched a 90,000 square foot office building, but it needed help. The town agreed to lease 1/3 of it for a certain period of time. It moved the school department into the building, and eventually the office building was fully leased commercially. And then again, the city moved the school department into a vacant building adjacent to City Hall, and then renovated it for the school department's use. Enfield might have to create these incentives as well. Enfield can sell town hall here, as well as the school department, and move those offices into the redeveloped mall building. This might provide the incentive to get some major redevelopment into some of the Macy's buildings. There's no historical reason for the town to remain in this building or location. Moreover, with the train station and the town's hope to get some transit-oriented development, the town may get more grand list value by redeveloping this property into either residential condominiums or a combination of offices or both. The first floor of the renovated office building, say one of the Macy's buildings, the G. Fox building, which I worked in 1972, can be occupied by restaurants and entertainment and maybe the town council offices. And the upper floors, they could probably create 3 floors in that building, could be occupied by the school department and the town hall. You can consider relocating the library to the mall. Our library can be a regional draw for reasons I'll get into. Our mutual library agreements make that possible. Although Enfield has hope that the train station or stop or platform or whatever it is they plan to build might bring development, don't count on it. The train is not an economic development backstop for this community. You are competing up and down the Connecticut River Valley for this type of development, and some of the other towns can make a better case for it. But they don't have what Enfield has along 91, and they wish they did. If you notice South Road, there's a relatively new business there, an office sharing facility. You can rent a desk or an office. I think it's doing very well. And that's because there may be more people working from home in this town than they are commuting to Hartford. And I've been working from home for 25 years. I haven't worked in an office, and I've been working full-time jobs that entire period. And when I go out, and when I go to Starbucks, when I go to Barnes & Noble, when I go to the library, I see my tribe. You know, and there's a lot of us who all work from home in this community. And we would like amenities that, you know, meet our needs. But that's just kind of a selfish point. Libraries are adapting to this as well. That is why it's possible to see a mall-based Enfield library becoming a regional draw. Libraries are putting in co-working spaces. They're doing that in some cities. I've been in them, and I've written about them. It's supported a village. So, you know, libraries are putting in co-working spaces and things like 3D printers to help very early-stage businesses and hobbyists. Thompsonville, where we are now, isn't the center of our town. It's not the heart of Enfield. It never was. Thompsonville was nothing more than a mill town. It supported a village of 15,000 people. Is that my time up? Okay. So
You're welcome to come back up. There's a lot of people here. And
okay. Then can I just finish to the very end?
Sure.
Okay. Regarding their proposal. My major concern with their proposal, the only thing I really worry about that mall is the Cinemark, right? If we lose Cinemark, that's a body blow to our community. There's no getting around it. So if this proposal that they have keeps Cinemark in there and renovates it, great. But Cinemark is building in Holyoke. They've renovated Springfield. They have Buckland. They haven't done a thing to ours. So that's my question. Does that help or hurt? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Marie Pisner, 25 Roy Street. As a resident of this town, the Enfield Mall, to me, is our hub. It's our biggest piece of land. And the owners that are here today want to make it an A or B mall. I would like nothing more than that mall to be what it once was. My thinking is, though, they're not telling us how they're going to attract new businesses, because the mall looking like it is right now, no one's going to want to go in there. I was hoping to see not a division of parcels, but this is what we're going to do to the facade of the building. This is what we're going to do in the interior of the building. This is what we're going to do to attract new businesses. They're not giving us any plan. And what I'm afraid of is they're going to do what they've done in their other malls, which we've demonstrated, and you were given literature on, that they're going to take this mall, they're going to put in XYZ, and walk away. Who is going to maintain the interior of this mall? They're not showing us that. They're not telling us that. And I understand they can't divulge names of businesses that want to come into the mall. I get that for legal reasons. But at least give us an idea. You know, we have a restaurant chain. We have, I don't know, XYZ, this type of retail, high-end retail, designer, whatever. I'm just hoping, I was really hoping last week, and I was hoping again, that this drawing would become, we're going to put the fountains back in. For those of you that remember when it first opened, it had beautiful fountains. You know, the lighting in there, it had like street-like lighting, the old, you know. What are you going to do to attract new businesses? Because right now, if I'm a business owner, what are you going to do for me as a landlord to entice me to get in there? That's what I would like. That's my question to the new owners. So my question is really not to the commission, it's to the owners. You want us to approve something, tell us what you're going to do. It's not that hard to put together a plan. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Marie. Anyone else? Anyone else? Going for the third time? Anyone else? Okay. Gentlemen, you're welcome to come back up.
Happy to answer any questions you may have.
She kind of hit on something that I had said last week about giving yourself a chance to sell your company. I mean, I have to agree, everything we're seeing is vague, I understand, but you could sell the community on it. You know, everybody has huge hopes, just as you do, about making this mall a success. This is our home. Born and raised here, a lot of people, they invested their entire lives in this community, and what you plan to do with that mall could greatly affect all of us, and that's why people are concerned. And I think the biggest issue is the lack of information. I understand, and me as a partner in business, I'd like to sit down with you, work with you, become a partner with you, and make the best we can make, not only for yourselves, but for the town as a whole. And I think that's where a lot of the frustration comes in. I understand that's out of our purview, but I think that's what the public is trying to say. And that's why last meeting I asked the gentleman if he wanted to come in and, you know, help sell your company. And his response was, it ain't worth the paper it's written on, what they're saying. And to me, that was kind of disrespectful to our residents of Enfield. And I could see them being upset by that. So, Commission, any further questions? Mary, anybody? Should I open it to the public one more time? Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I think a couple of things. As we all know, there's challenges facing retail in America today. The mall has struggled, is perhaps a fair way to state it. There are situations in America where people are walking away from malls. That's not what's happening here. Somebody stepped up in triage and trying to stop loss at this mall and turn the corner and bring it back and make it stronger and better. And the first step is to establish strong tenancy at the mall in terms of these level of activities. And in some situations, that is my time up. No, I'm kidding. I would understand perhaps the Commission felt that way, but I think the issue here is to try to actually turn the corner and to create these opportunities. I do know that town staff has been involved in conversations more detailed than the Commission has in terms of activity that's going on out there, which I think would excite you. And we can't disclose it today in terms of what's going on. So, and I know staff was advised that this was proprietary information. Please do not disclose what's going on. But I would hope that you would be heartened by this activity. I think the nature of our application is that we understand your aspirations for the mall. In my conversations with Mike Gavin, these are his aspirations for the mall as well. The regulations, we believe, allow us to propose what we have proposed in compliance with your regulations. We hope to come back to you for zoning approvals for all the things that you've asked for. But tonight we're here for a simple subdivision re-subdivision application, which is what causes the public hearing. And we seek your approval so that we can move ahead. So, thank you.
I'm going to open it up to the public one more time, give them the opportunity.
Mary Ann Turner, 7 Meadow Road. I actually have to give them points tonight. I think they're speaking to us in a calmer way. I think that they're understanding that the public is extremely interested. I know for a fact that over 700 people watch this planning and zoning, so you're all movie stars now. There's a part of me that says we need to take the risk. I know I came in front of you last time and I said, I looked them up on the internet. We all know what we can find on the internet. I have to be honest, I was having a difficult time finding positive things. But if you had the moment to read through some of those documents, I highlighted some of those points. And as Commissioner Nelson, I really couldn't go deeply into those documents because there's only so much time. So I don't know what rule, if they subdivide the mall, and I don't understand, in my mind, they're subdividing J.C. Penney and Sears, the existing as they stand. I'm not sure how that helps or hinders, but there's a little piece of me, after listening tonight, that we might just need to take the risk and maybe hold their feet to the fire a little bit and say, look, we're putting our faith in you. You can't let us down. And I guess I want to just say we have to try, because we all know the mall is near and dear to all our hearts, because we all grew up in it. But times are changing, and the gentleman who spoke earlier, he got me excited with different ideas. I don't see the town moving into the mall. I mean, there'd be a whole bunch of people in here saying, I don't want to pay rent. But the idea of the library and the idea of a community center, or something that maybe we can have a little wishful thinking. So I guess tonight I'm saying to you, if it's possible, if the rules allow it, if there's any way, then maybe we take the risk.
Anyone else wishing to come up? Going for the, Lori?
I just want you to know that I have.
You what?
I have some comments.
Okay. For a sec, come on up. Thank you. Name and address for the record, please.
Joan Lawson, 18 Mountain View Ave. I wasn't at the last meeting. I've been a resident of Enfield for a lot of years. My children have grown up here, and I have come to love that mall. It's not only the stores that were there, but it's a place we go walking, and it's the heart. It's a heart of our community. And I just don't feel good about what I'm hearing tonight. There's questions in my mind of what's going to happen, and I just wanted you to know that I'm not feeling good about what we don't know. I just feel like there's big question marks because we don't know what they're going to do. So I just wanted to state that and really think hard about that decision.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to address the commission for the first time? Second time? Ma'am?
Maybe I didn't. Oh, my name's Angelica Massetti.
Address?
87 West Street, Windsor Locks, Connecticut. My husband and I we managed, didn't manage it. I was a rental agent. My husband was a superintendent of freshwater pond departments for almost 6 years. The mall was the first place we came to when we got here. I only came up to ask one question because when something sticks in my head, I am nervous. When something sticks in my head, I can't let it go. I'm sorry, sir, your name? Glenn. When Glenn was saying that there are things that we don't know about this. There are things that were spoken, to use better words, behind closed doors, that we don't know about. Because, I don't know if I'm quoting or not quoting, because if we were to know, we wouldn't be too happy. Or we wouldn't be, I'm trying to find the right words that I heard. Maybe I misheard them, but if I had the wrong words in my head, that we don't know what happened, what are the things that were spoken behind closed doors, why we don't know about them to make this decision, I feel very uncomfortable with that phrase, that we don't know all that we need to know. We only have a little piece to make us feel comfortable. I love the idea of that gentleman saying it could be like a community type of a mall. I had the same idea. You know, it could be, if I had millions and millions of dollars, it would look like Thomas Kincaid. You know, it'll be the library be in there, the town hall will be in there. People will love to go. But that's what's in my head, and I'm sharing that. If the other group cannot share what's in their head or what was spoken behind closed doors, and that might get us a little bit upset, I don't feel comfortable with that idea. So that's it.
Anyone else wishing to come up and speak for the first time? Anyone? Second time? Going for the third time? Anyone? Okay, gentlemen, come on up. Do we want to make a motion to close the public hearing? Okay, gentlemen, come on.
To address the concerns.
I'm going to ask him a question too.
We haven't closed anything. Would you like to address any of the concerns or
We're
questions?
happy to answer any questions the commission may have.
Okay. Commissioner Ladd.
My question would be, it might be helpful, at least for me to help decide, if you would give generalities, not specifics. I don't care about company names or anything. Just what kind of what kind of businesses we're talking about. And like I said, no names. I don't care about names, just generalization.
I'm not familiar with all of the activities which are ongoing. It's not within my area of knowledge or expertise, but I have been told that I can inform the commission of two things. There is an anchor tenant, which is being courted, which would be an attractive addition and occupy an existing space at the mall. So one of the anchor spaces would become occupied, which is important because it drives traffic to the mall and makes the other spaces more valuable, including the small tenants, which is really the opportunity at a mall to enhance your revenue stream. The other activity which is afoot is a new building, a new construction, which would occur out at the site. Issues related to the adequacy of parking would, of course, need to be addressed, drainage, utilities, and all of the other things that are like that. So those are discussions which are appearing more fruitful. So are they signed? They're not. They're actually somewhat dependent on what happens here with the commission in terms of that regard. But I think that you and the residents of Enfield should know that the company is working very hard to make this mall a success for themselves and for the community. And this is the path. This is what they do. And the fact that there are two exciting prospects that they're excited about, I think bodes well for Ensfield's location within the region and the opportunities for the future. But I think the first step is to turn the corner and to demonstrate progress and action, and that's now where things start to become more interesting and exciting. You counteract the trend. I think that's their intent. Now I'm done, Mr. Chairman.
You don't have a time limit.
He just doesn't know how to work it, that's all.
Any other questions from the commission? Because I'm going to open it back up to the public.
Mr. Chairman, so next time you ask me, I will not speak so that way you don't. I'm learning. It took me 3 rounds, but.
So I have to open it back up to the public.
I didn't realize I will not say another word tonight.
Not because of you, because the commissioner asked the question.
My fault.
Anybody like to come up and speak to the commission for the first time? Anybody like to, ma'am?
My name is Dottie Smith. I was born and raised here.
Address?
I've never wanted to move.
Excuse me, your address, please.
What's that? Am I talking low? Dorothy Smith. I live on Brainerd Road.
Thank you.
And I was born and raised here. I'm not into all the details we're talking about. I just have something simple that hit me. When the person buying it was asked to come and speak, and he said it's not worth the money that it's written on. I'm sorry. I feel like what is happening here is for money and not for people. That's all I had to say. That's it.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Anybody else for the first time? For the second time? Nobody? How about a third? Come on up, ma'am. I knew we'd get somebody.
My name is Lori Valle. I live at 10 Pomeroy Road. I was born and raised in this town and went to high school here. And when the mall was originally bought, the Cloak and Dagger, let's not disclose who bought this mall for a long period of time, puts big questions in my mind. Because if you're going to buy a property, you want people to know you're coming, especially because we were long awaiting that mall to be sold and to be used and not just lay there partially dormant. So the fact that that name was never disclosed or that group was never disclosed for people to say, well, look, we're excited about them coming, or maybe we're not excited about them coming, was always the first question in my mind. And now we have less information than we had, except for we know who bought it. They are not from this area. They have little to no interest in this area. Their families don't even hear, they're from Long Island or maybe not from Long Island. So those things, for those people who are born and raised in this town, are really important because we have an interest in what goes on here. We raise our children here. They come back and they live with us later. They live in this town, and that's a generational thing that we call legacy. And that is important. And for all those original people that came and settled in this area, we were proud of living in Enfield. It has a great history. And we don't want that to let go by people who don't have a vested interest except for that they own property here. That's really bad. And around the world, there are a lot of people who have a lot of money that have no interest in the place that they own. And those are bad landlords.
Thank you, Lori. Anybody else like to come up and address the commission for the first time? Second time? Nobody? Third time? Okay. Gentlemen, come on up. You're good?
I've been taking a lot of notes, so I have a lot of responses, perhaps, hopefully answers.
Mm-hmm.
So first of all, I want you once again to understand that this is an application for re-subdivision. A subdivision does not talk to use. It never does. It's not a retail, it's not a residential subdivision. We know it's a commercial subdivision. So we anticipate that there'll be commercial activity here. It will be continued as the mall is now. Any changes to those uses will need to come back and either modify the special permit or come in for a site plan or a text amendment for perhaps a different use. For instance, currently we don't allow residential uses at that mall. If they want to come in and put elderly housing in, they will have to come before this commission, public hearing, and ask for that new use. So any uses will have to, any new uses will have to come before this commission via a public hearing. So I just want that to be put out there. Again, it's not their responsibility to tell you what the uses are for the subdivision. You just know that it's going, whatever it is, if it's currently permitted, they can do it. Okay. I wanted to just kind of note that in this audience, not anybody from the mall is here to speak in favor, but not against. If Target didn't like this, they'd be here speaking against it. That's usually the way it works. All right, so just to go through some of the notes as I listen to the commissioners' questions and comments, I'm going to go back to that number 9, the business regional number 9. The requirements that vary this, that says these shall not apply as a restriction to any subdivision of the original special permit area. So that means a subdivision within any part of the mall does not need to have 5 acres. It does not need to have a setback of 10-foot front or 10-foot side or 150-foot frontage. That is what that number 9 is saying, is none of those dimensions are required except for the overall outside area. Within the mall, they do not have to be met. That is my interpretation. I think it's been staff's interpretation after we discussed this. I agree that the 5.30, I think as Mr. Chalder alluded, that is when you originally create that mall, and then, after that, this section does fall. That also does say unified ownership or control. So it could be many ownerships, but as long as there's a unified, similar to a homeowners association or something, I think that meets the intent. Okay. Where's my... I lost it. Okay, here we go. Okay, again, no physical changes. We're not concerned about floodplain or wetlands. The ECCRs is a proposed document. It's not signed. It's not filed. It's only going to be created once subdivision occurs. Until then, the current ECCRs stay in place. NAMDAR has stated, and it's been reiterated this evening, that the main mall, they try to lease their tenants, but the main tenants, especially the larger ones, want to own because they get better financing. That's really the short of it. They get better financing if they can own their land than what NAMDAR could give them. Again, drainage improvements, elevation changes, anything of that nature would have to come back before this commission with site plan modification at bare minimum. The original special permit, again, this is not anything to change the special permit. It's not changing the uses. It's only changing the parcel sizes. Subdivision, subdivision is strictly just parcel size as opposed to the uses. Trying to answer all of these things. A couple other things. Number 9. I love the idea about the libraries and the co-working space, but that is not totally relevant tonight, but it will be. I will tell you that Town Manager Bromson and I sat in on a telephone conversation with one of the 3 partners of NAMDAR. They were excited to be here. They thought Enfield was a great place. They thought the real estate was fabulous. They didn't know what they wanted to do with it, but they were glad to be coming here. They would like to see a nice live, work, play space. They do, as Glenn alluded to, that they do have 2 national tenants that are ready to sign on the dotted line as soon as they can own the properties. We can't tell you who they are. I know one of them, but the other one was still vague to me. I will tell you one of them is recreational in nature. They are hiring a redevelopment specialist. So for that would be the person that will come to Enfield and work with the staff and the commission to, work on the new plan of conservation and development and work on what we really truly want to see for that mall. Let's see. Oh, they made the comment that they realize that they own the mall, but ultimately it's Enfield's mall, and they want to make sure that we're happy with it. So they were very forthcoming with that. So I think that's about all based on the comments that I had. Do we want to talk about the 530? So we discovered that 530 regarding the 10 acres was there before number 9 came into existence, which came into number 9, the 5.10.1 notes to area and bulk requirements, that actually came into play in 2017. So actually, the 5.30 was in the regulations prior to the number 9. So it was something that happened under Roger O'Brien's tenure here. Is that correct?
Roger reduced the requirements in table 5.10 for the lot area requirements for that zone. Well, he put it forward, the commission approved it, but what wasn't changed to match that was the requirements of section 5.30, so that currently the two were meant to coincide as a cohesive regulation for the business regional district. It sort of got divided unintentionally in 2017.
Yeah.
They changed it from what to what in 2017?
In 2017, the lot area for business regional was reduced from 10 acres to 5 acres, only in the table. And it was just an oversight, I guess, at the time, because they didn't realize that there was that specific 10 acres also written in the special requirements pertaining to the business regional district. So.
Another fix for us.
Yep.
I don't know if you have any other questions. I tried to address things that I heard as I was going along.
I have 2 questions for staff. When was the mall split into 8 parcels, or was it? Or were they merged, were 8 parcels merged to create the mall back in the 70s? Because I know Enfield in the 70s merged every parcel that was owned by the same person and abutted itself. Okay? I've had to unmerge many parcels myself. Yeah. So I don't know why the mall would be an exception to that. And so also, when was it split to the 2 lots that the town recognizes, Macy's and the mall? And I would really like to see the notes and the minutes on that, because both those parcels have access to public roads. And what they're asking us to do right now has nothing to public roads. So I want to see where this mall became 8 so-called lots, which the town doesn't recognize through the assessor of the tax office. And I don't know if you can pull that up tonight because of the...
I don't think we could pull that up without going to the land records.
Well, the land records is going to show that they were all separate properties. They're always going to be, you know, lot and description of each parcel. You know, and the town of Enfield has nothing on record saying what was merged or wasn't merged. But I know when I buy a property and it consisted of 3 lots, I get 3 different deeds for the property, but the town requires it as one, and I have to go through an unmerging process to do something with the other lots. If they conform to the neighborhood, they make me start all over again. So how is the mall different? And, you know, nobody's producing, they keep saying re-subdivision. Where's the original subdivision? From 1 lot to 2 or from 1 lot to 9? Because Macy's, you know, how many lots is Macy's combined? You know, I want to see that.
Yeah. I can't speak to those, you know, when things happened or were they merged or not, because I have not talked to the assessor about that.
Or if they happened.
If one parcel is divided into 2 pieces, anything after that is a re-subdivision. So it's sort of irrelevant whether it was divided into 2 pieces or 5 pieces or when. The point is that they are now 8 pieces and they want to further
subdivide. Who says they're 8 pieces? That's what I'm saying.
Land
the town
records
recognizes it as 2 pieces.
The deeds,
but they're always going to show. If I sell you 50 by 100 feet of my backyard, you're going to have a deed that states that, correct? It doesn't make it a lot, Lori.
It doesn't make a legal lot of record. I agree with what you're saying, and I understand where you're going with it. However, this number 9 voids that concern. It doesn't have a minimum lot size. It doesn't have a required frontage. It exempts all of that except for height.
Okay.
that's my interpretation, and you may or may not agree with it, but that's where
I really wasn't asking for the interpretation. I was
Yeah.
asking for the subdivision.
Yeah.
To see when it was done, if it was done, or were they merged to create the
Merged,
entire
yeah.
parcel?
Yeah.
That's what I was asking for.
I don't have an answer to that.
Thank you.
I just was surprised. I went online today in the town clerk's land records, and I tried to find maps. I figured if I found maps, I would totally understand better the concept of who divided what, where, when, and that would allay a lot of my fears. There was not one map listed. I don't know where they are. I'm sure they're there somewhere, but they're not listed on the land records that are privy to the public. I think that would make me feel a lot better if I knew that there were 8 lots and the map was signed by planning and zoning and recorded on the land records.
Subdivision.
Yeah.
Mary?
Well, Rich and I were just taking a look at the legal description on the back of the covenants and restrictions, and it looks like they surveyed all those 8 parcels in 1998. So I'm wondering if that's a clue as to when that might have occurred, because usually you get a survey done when you're going to be doing stuff like that, and they're all dated. Yeah, they're all dated in that range, the survey for it. So I would think that might be a clue to a place to look if people are interested in that information.
All set? Rich, anything? Commissioner Petronella.
Just a quick question for Lori. When an application is received, it was presented as such that it's a re-subdivision of 8 lots to 13. I got to assume that somebody on staff verified this information, that it is 8 lots currently.
We
Correct?
relied on the surveyor of that presented the plans because they have to do a deed research and record.
Correct, and I did ask that, you know, and he is a professional, licensed professional engineer, and
Yes, he is.
I assume that
And he's a professional surveyor, land surveyor.
He did state that
LS?
he verified that it was 8
Oh,
lots.
he is, okay. I thought you said the surveyor, engineer. Okay, yes, yes.
Yeah. All right. Thank you.
So he verified that there were 8 lots when he did his research? You verified that there were 8 lots on the land records?
Yeah, I can't speak for him.
They were merged. That's what could have been to create.
As I stated, I'm a professional engineer. Our office has many licensed surveyors. They went into the town, got all the records, and that's how they came up with the existing lot configuration and all the meets and bounds that exist today. And I think if you look at the original application we made with those 8 large sheets, you'll notice on them, they're all meets and bounds, and they even reference what page and number in your town records. So that's all, everything we see on the existing conditions is from your records. So it is legally 8 lots.
Thank you.
It was 8 lots. That
It is
could have
right
been
now.
merged together.
Right
to
now,
create the
today, in your records, it's 8 lots. I don't know when it was 1 or 2 or 3, but right now it's 8.
Okay, I'm all set. Anybody else? Open it back up to the public one more time. There's been, Lori answered a bunch of questions. So, yeah, playing it safe. I'd like to open it to the public one last time. Lori answered a lot of your questions. This is where you have an opportunity to question something she might have said that, you agree or disagree with. So, anybody? Mary?
I think we can go round. Marie Pisner, 25 Roy Street.
Thank you.
I think we can go round and around and around and around. I do feel much better. Lori saying, and I trust Lori's word, that this company does want to work with us. I agree with Mary Ann. What are our other options at this point? We have to trust them. I just want them to hear loud and clear that the residents of this town are going to expect them to keep their promise. And I expect the commission sitting in front of me that when they do come up with an actual business, that we make it clear it's a business that's going to do right by this town. I mean, we have no choice but to trust them. They own it. I get that. I just wish, I just wish it was a perfect world. And maybe the owner would come in here and say, you know what? I understand. I want to be your partner. I want to make this good. He just keeps going to that footnote 9. That's the only thing I'm getting out of this whole thing is footnote 9. It's going to be embedded in my brain for the rest of my life. So again, I'm so happy I'm not sitting up there, but I have to trust Lori. And if she says they are really willing to work with us, then I guess we have to take them for their word. But again, I am asking everybody on this commission, please, 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 when they come forward, hold them to their promise. And they need to know loud and clear, we can fill this whole parking lot, if need be, with residents to make sure they hold their promise. Thank you for your time.
Anybody else like to come up and address the commission? Ma'am.
Pamela Lal Brown, 34 Southwood Road. I'm an analyst by profession, and one of the things that I listen to that doesn't add up. Whether you talk about 2 lots or 8 lots or whatever, there has to be an original document. And when you make changes as an analyst or to a program, there is something called historical documentation. And between a validation of, well, I'm the engineer, but I trust these people, or the staff says, well, I think we agreed to it because somebody said it's so. How do we know for a fact that this is what it was, A, it became B, there has to be a linear document somewhere. And I'm sitting there and I'm trying to add up in my mind all that's going on, and to me, there is no connection. And if we go forward saying, okay, yes, we like to have our mall look a certain way, bring income into the town, which I agree to, but we're starting off with less information, and we are giving the character and integrity to people that don't have an invested interest except for a bank account. So I think in all fairness, if we are looking at this in a very black and white way, we need to have a linear historical event. It started here, it changed here, this is what happened, and I don't see it tonight. Maybe I'm the only one, but thank you.
Anyone else like to come up and address the commission? Going for the second time? The third time? Okay. How would you like to proceed? Would you guys like to close the public hearing? Have a vote on it? So I need a motion to close the public hearing.
I move to close the public hearing.
Second.
Questions, concerns? Ready to move? All in favor? Opposed? It's unanimous. Okay, I'd like to open up for discussion. Councilman DeGray?
All right. I have been struggling with this decision all week. And I've done some research, and I've done a lot of research on malls in the United States, not just in Connecticut, not just in Enfield, but all areas of the United States. And there's many malls out there that are like ours right now. They're they're classified. I learned about the different classifications about the malls and all of that. There's a lot of what they'd call C-class malls. And people write really negative things about them because there's nothing there. But if this company is going to bring us something to the table that revitalizes that area, that makes it a destination for not just the town of Enfield, but for anybody traveling to Springfield to go to the casino or wherever, I think we have to, I mean, they're telling us that they've got a couple of good potentials. I'm in the property management business. I know that there's a lot of things that you've got to work to do to get that person to sign that commitment. It doesn't happen overnight, but we have to do something, and they seem to want to do something. So I'm feeling a little bit better tonight than I did last week. That's all I'm saying. Okay?
Commissioner Scott.
Okay, with regards to tonight and what Linda just said, I do feel a little bit more comfortable tonight, but I think the one thing that needs to be very clear is we do have a re-subdivision before us. I understand the public's concern about what's going in there and all the things that are happening, but for us tonight, we can't make a determination based upon what's going in there. They own this property, and as long as they comply with our zoning regulations and the re-subdivision and our subdivision regulations, we really don't have any recourse but to approve it. At least for me, that's how I feel. I can't speak for other members of the commission, but I do hear the concerns of the public, and I think it's really important that they will need to come before us for any uses that go on that property. And when they do, we're going to hopefully be partners with them, because we do all want the same thing for the community. And I just don't want people to think I'm disregarding their concerns with regards to what's going to happen, but I do feel that we can only consider this as a re-subdivision, and that's pretty much what our purview is for this decision that's before us. So, thank you.
Commissioner Suzak.
Again, I'd just like to indicate that, you know, we do have a vision for this piece of property in this area, and it's always, you know, an upbeat, you know, upscale, you know, looking at the future in what direction we're going to be going. And, you know, I am somewhat, you know, concerned that everybody recognize what this vision is, and it is more or less. I keep referencing our plan of conservation and development, and, you know, what we need to do is we need to move forward towards that goal. And I think that, you know, we have indicated to the owner that, you know, that is our intention, that we would like to know more information or see a greater plan or see some kind of a layout of how all this material is going to get included into this development area. But, you know, for the most part, you know, I totally, you know, I'm not against the re-subdivision, and I've always stated that. I just was hoping that we would see a bigger plan of how it was going to be developed. But, you know, for the most part, again, we have to sort of at least have some confidence in the people who are developing this mall, and recognizing that we have expressed our concerns and that we are going to go forward with our plan of our vision for this mall, and that they will have to, if they don't want to be part of it, they'll have to take whatever we give them, and we were hoping that they could be part of what we're trying to achieve, so that in that sense we're working as a partnership to sort of create an environment that everybody can work with, and everybody has the same vision in an ultimate goal. So, and that's what I would like to say.
Commissioner Petronella.
Yeah, overall, I tend to agree with the other commissioners. We all have our visions, but this is the first step in development. They really can't proceed unless they get over this first hump. And they've got people waiting to sign and so forth. So they really need this first step to proceed forward. Right now, what we have here, what we're looking at, is a mall that's even being used for a parking lot for new cars, which is, I'm just appalled by that. I discuss it every time I go through it. There's got to be something better, and I think this is the first step to make it better, and I feel that they're here to try to push this forward, and I certainly can support this re-subdivision. Thank you.
So I agree with a lot of what the commission has said. Couple things that stick out in my mind. The word re-subdivision, going from 8 lots to 13 lots or whatever it is. I have nothing showing that that property is 8 lots other than 8 legal descriptions of properties that were merged together, could have been merged together to make it the mall. When asked, when was it subdivided from 1 lot to 2 to 8 to 13? There's nothing. There's nothing to back us up. So this commission's sitting here being asked to change it from 8 lots, which we don't know it's 8 lots, to 13 lots. So the minute we do that, we approve the original 8 lots that might have been merged to create the entire mall as we know it. So I personally am not comfortable to move to vote on this tonight. I want to do my research, which I have done, and also the 5.30 regulation. You know, we're getting interpretation. Well, you know, it shouldn't be there, but it is there, and it specifically says for 10 acres. So if it wasn't removed, then what's the point of these regulations? Because they're using them to their advantage. So when we go to use them for our advantage, now I just feel like we might be being led. We're not getting information we're asking for, so I will continue to do my research unless the commission chooses to move forward with a vote tonight. But at this point, I am not ready to move forward with a vote, and we have 60 days to do so. So I'm open to listen to ideas how you guys want to proceed. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I just want to remind you that the public hearing is closed, so any additional information is not relevant.
I'm not asking you for anything. I'll do my own research.
I just want to clarify that for the record.
I just had one thing. I'm agreeing with Ken. I just don't quite feel comfortable. I feel better, but not comfortable yet. And once it's done, it's very hard to undo. And this is our one big parcel in Enfield that everybody wants to see work. And I'm glad that the new owners want to see it work, but we need to do it right, and we only get one shot at it. And the other thing is, when Lori, when you were giving all your notes and everything, which I really appreciated because they answered some of my questions, you said site plan. And that to me was a turnoff. I want to make sure, if possible, and you know, this through the chair, I'd like to see everything coming forward automatically be a special use permit. That allows the citizens' input, and that allows us more authority over what's approved. That's it.
Just a clarification, when I was saying site plan or special permit, it depending on what the application was going for. I mean, if it's outright permitted, then it's a site plan. If it's a special use permit or a special permit for that type of use, then it would be a special permit with the site plan.
Yeah, but I was just going to say, I'm not talking about a little area of grass, but if they put up a building and they say, oh, it's a small building, so it should be a site plan because it's just moving things around, I'd like it to be a special use permit, again, through the chair.
I'll entertain whatever you guys want to do. You want to table, you want to vote, move to a vote, however you want to proceed.
They'd have to give us an extension, I would think.
No.
No?
The public
Oh,
hearing's
we've already
closed.
closed. Yes,
This is
okay.
discussion.
Then I would like to just do a little more research. I know it's cutting everything close, but I would, once I go to vote, I want to make an informed decision and not have any questions.
So make a motion to table.
I move to table it.
Hold on.
So just once again, as a reminder, the public hearing being closed, you can't get any other information. No extraneous information, no more research. Anything that's in the record that is current is what you should be basing your.
I can research what we have in front of us. Absolutely.
I just want to go over what I have. And I moved to continue it, and I didn't get a second, so I don't know where we stand.
So you either need a motion to table the
discussion,
the decision, or to make a decision.
I move to table the decision to the next meeting.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Charlie seconds. By a show of hands, all in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 in favor. Does not pass. Correct?
Well, we only got 7 voting, so.
No, it did pass. 7. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. Against.
Nobody said against yet.
Oh, okay.
Against? 1, 2, 3 against. And
So it's tabled until next week.
So then I see that as that you are tabling action on this to the following meeting. Is that correct? Okay.
Yep, no more discussion, just we'll
no more
vote on it.
information, no more discussion.
Yep.
We'll continue blind like we have through the whole thing.
And which is January 23rd.
Finally getting an answer, at least a generalization. And
Okay.
There are no more answers or questions. You may review the record.
Lori answering questions made me a lot more comfortable with it, but I still like to review it one more time on this. And
Okay, so
done.
That's it. We're done. Can I get a motion?
I move to adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Ginny Higley, and I'm sorry, was that Linda or Mary? Linda. It was Linda. Thank you.